Have you ever thought about what really separates leaders who, get through their terms without any scandal from others? Those whose big anti-corruption promises just seem to fade into what our sources are calling the illusion of integrity. What is it that makes some seem almost immune to the problems of power while, well, others just stumble? Today, that's exactly what we're doing a deep dive into. And our source material is really interesting. It's excerpts from a fictional interview series created by the American Anti-Corruption Institute, AACI. Now, this isn't about a specific real person. It's more like an educational tool, a really smart one, actually, designed to show these universal ideas about governance, accountability, and crucially, how to prevent corruption proactively. Our goal here is to pull out the key insights from a former president, again, fictional, who finished 2 full terms without getting caught up in any fraud or corruption allegations. We really want to understand how integrity wasn't just like protected by luck or something, but how it was actively built into how they led, into the institutions themselves. What were the actual mechanisms, beyond just personal goodness, that shielded them from falling into that illusion of integrity trap we hear about?
Yeah, and what's so fascinating, and what the ACI frames really effectively in these interviews, I think, is the focus on the how. How do you actually achieve lasting integrity? They make it super clear. It's way beyond just having good intentions or making grand promises. Our sources really push past the talk, the rhetoric, and get into practical things, actionable strategies. It's really about engineering an environment, kind of designing a system where integrity is just the normal way things work, the default, not something you just cross your fingers and hope for.
And this president, right from the start, they make this distinction that kind of sets the whole tone. They were really clear that the focus wasn't about protecting themselves, as a person. Instead, the main thing was, and this is a quote, protecting the office and the people's trust in it. So what does that actually mean? To protect an office, not just the leader. Why is that such a foundational shift?
It really is a profound reorientation, isn't it? If you think about it, most people, they kind of equate leadership integrity with the leader's personal character. But this president understood that character. Yeah, it's essential, obviously, but it's not enough by itself. Protecting an office means you get that the role itself holds this public trust, and that trust has to be kept up no matter who's sitting in the chair. The key insight they shared was, I would not be the only guardian of integrity. And that's not just some nice philosophical phrase, right? It's a strategic choice. It's about embedding accountability way beyond just one individual. It's recognizing that integrity is fragile if it all hangs on one person, one potential point of failure. So for you listening, think about leadership roles you see, or maybe ones you hold. Is the main focus just on the person's reputation? Or is it really about safeguarding the integrity built into the role itself and the public trust that goes with it?
That really makes you think about how easily leaders can get cut off, doesn't it? Especially from hearing things they might not want to hear. And the president then talks about one of the most dangerous things a leader can create, this circle of silence. Advisors who just agree because they're afraid, not because they actually believe it. So, okay, once they laid that foundation, protect the office first, what did they do to fight that? What was the maybe counterintuitive strategy to make sure they got real feedback, not just echoes?
Yeah, the president's approach was deliberate, almost radical, you could say, as a countermove to that circle of silence. They didn't just sit back and hope for honesty. They actively required it, mandated it. Their core idea was to surround themselves with advisors picked specifically for, quote, independence, competence, and high integrity, not loyalty. And that's such a critical difference because loyalty, when it becomes blind loyalty, that can easily lead to silence.
Right. Uncritical loyalty.
Exactly. And then the president gave this really powerful, non-negotiable order. If you cannot tell me when I am wrong, you cannot serve.
Yeah.
That just completely flips the power dynamic, doesn't it?
Totally.
It changes an advisor's job from being this sort of passive agreeer to being an active, critical thinker.
Yeah.
Someone whose main job is actually to push back, to scrutinize. And the ACI source, it really highlights that the independence part meant looking for people who were financially secure on their own, accomplished outside politics.
Yeah.
People known for having a moral compass,
Yeah.
People who actually had something to lose if they compromised, but also had that inner strength to say the tough things. It's all about creating the conditions for good people to actually speak up, not just hoping they would.
Wow. That takes incredible confidence from the leader, doesn't it? To actually ask for that kind of pushback, to actively look for people who might disagree. Okay, even if you pick advisors with integrity, there's always pressure, right? External pressure, maybe internal temptation. So, how did this president go beyond just picking good people? How did they create actual structures, like real systemic safeguards that made it harder for anyone to abuse their position or hide things?
Right, and this is exactly where the systemic thinking really comes into play,
Hmm.
moving beyond just relying on individual goodness. The president understood that even people with high integrity, well, they can be tripped up by bad systems or too much pressure. So they put in place two specific, pretty powerful mechanisms, part of the everyday routine.
Yeah.
First, they required annual audited asset declarations for all senior officials.
Filtrated. Okay, not just filled out.
Exactly. The ACI source really stresses this wasn't just some internal HR form. They mandated independent external auditors who had real power to investigate,
Hmm.
specifically looking for, unexplained wealth, assets suddenly piling up that didn't match their official pay. That shifts it from just paperwork to a real deterrent.
Hmm. I can see that.
And second, they rotated advisory roles every 3 years.
Wow.
And that wasn't just about stopping people getting too comfortable or entrenched. It also deliberately limited the time anyone had to build up these long-term, unchecked power bases or networks. The kind of networks that could become vulnerable to, well, dodgy influences or corrupt deals.
Yeah.
It's really about admitting people aren't perfect, systems matter, and you need to build guardrails around power.
I get the logic, absolutely. But I can imagine it's still tough in reality. I mean, lots of leaders say they want honest feedback, but people often just hold back anyway, right? They
Yeah.
self-censor. So how did this president really stop that kind of sneaky silence from taking over the cabinet? How did they actually grow a genuine culture of candor, where advisors felt not just safe, but like they had to speak up? What was their maybe slightly unusual method?
Okay. This particular strategy, I think it says so much about how this president understood people, psychology of it all and the dynamics of power. They knew that saying, oh, I want honest feedback, that's not enough. You have to actively prove you mean it. You have to create a culture that backs it up. So the president shared this amazing little story.
Mm.
Sometimes they would deliberately present an idea I didn't believe in just to see if anyone would challenge me.
Seriously?
Wow. Yeah. And it wasn't like a gotcha moment or a trick. It was a test. A deliberate check on the culture, like taking its temperature. If nobody spoke up, if there was just silence, that was the red flag. It meant there was a problem with the culture, not necessarily with the idea itself.
That's fascinating.
It's not just saying my door's open, it's actively inviting the challenge, making honesty part of the actual governing process. By putting themselves out there to be challenged, the president showed that disagreement wasn't just okay, it was expected. It was valued. That builds trust, doesn't it? That's psychological safety. It showed advisors, hey, I really want your critical thoughts, and I'm secure enough to hear them.
That is a brilliant way to empower people and make sure you're actually hearing different views. Okay, and speaking of bringing things to light, transparency. It's something almost every leader promises. But how did this president make it actually work? Turn it into a real tool for preventing corruption day to day instead of just, a word they throw around.
Yeah, and the president gave a really clear, practical example of how they baked transparency into the system. They mandated that every single major infrastructure tender thing of big projects, big money, had to be published online within 48 hours of being approved.
For 48 hours, that's fast.
Very fast.
Right.
And crucially, it wasn't just like summaries or press releases. It was the full contracts made accessible to everyone, the public and independent audit bodies.
The full details.
The reason, simple but really powerful. This approach, quote, discouraged shortcuts because everyone knew decisions would face immediate scrutiny. And the ACI material points out that immediate scrutiny meant journalists, civil society watchdogs, opposition parties, even rival companies. You could all instantly dig into the details.
Right. Everyone looking at once.
Exactly. That collective public oversight becomes this automatic, ongoing check. It makes it incredibly hard for, hidden clauses, inflated costs, or unfair advantages to just slip through unnoticed. It basically shines a massive spotlight into those dark corners where corruption tends to grow, turns public oversight into a built-in feature.
That real-time, detailed look that sounds absolutely vital for closing off those hidden routes. Okay, so final piece here. We've talked about protecting the office, building courageous teams, systemic checks, fostering honesty, transparency. But how did this president make sure that this whole culture, the system of integrity, would actually last beyond their own time in office? That feels like the ultimate test, right? True governance, lasting impact.
Yeah, and this is really where the whole picture clicks together, I think. It shows how forward-thinking the president's approach was. They completely understood that even the best leader is, well, temporary. So, to make integrity stick around, they had to build resilience into the system itself, make it strong enough to resist future leaders who might not share the same values or commitment to fighting corruption.
So how do you do that?
Their strategy was to create genuinely independent bodies. Bodies with fixed terms of office, meaning they couldn't just be fired on a whim. The prime example given is a procurement board, the people overseeing those big contracts we mentioned. Its members could not be dismissed by the president.
Insulated from political pressure.
Precisely. That independence, shielded from the day-to-day politics or preferences of whoever is in power, meant these bodies could keep enforcing the rules, keep upholding integrity, even if the political climate changed. And the AACI notes these bodies usually had strong legal backing, often needing huge votes in parliament or even constitutional changes to mess with their structure, really locking in their autonomy. The president's powerful summary captures it all. If integrity depends only on one person, it is fragile. And that leads straight to the big takeaway message here. Leadership integrity has to be systemic. It's not just about the individual. Leaders come and go. Good systems, strong institutions, they remain. So if you want clean governance, you must design institutions where honesty is not an exception, but the default. It really is about engineering the environment, like we said at the start, so that integrity becomes the easiest path, the normal path.
Wow, yeah. We've really seen today how protecting leadership integrity isn't just about one person being heroic or virtuous. It's actually a meticulously designed system. It starts with surrounding yourself with genuinely independent advisors, people who will push back, actively creating a culture where honest feedback isn't just allowed, it's demanded. Then it moves through putting transparent processes in place that, leave no shadows to hide in. And finally, it culminates in building these resilient institutions, ones designed to last longer than any single leader. Those really are the pillars, aren't they? The pillars of integrity that endures. This whole deep dive, it really challenges us to think beyond just judging individual character, doesn't it? It makes us look at the structures all around us and ask, what systems in our own workplaces, our communities, maybe even our personal lives, could benefit from being deliberately set up to make honesty the easy choice, the default, not just an exception we have to constantly fight for? How do we make integrity genuinely resilient, no matter who's in charge?
And just a quick note for those of you keen to dig even deeper into this, the American Anti-Corruption Institute, they mentioned that part 2 of this fictional interview series goes further. It apparently explores how you lower corruption risk across broader institutions, the wider system, and critically, why having an independent, really competent judiciary is the absolute bedrock of accountability. So it expands the view from just the top leadership to that whole ecosystem of governance.
Really fascinating stuff to look forward to. Okay, well, until then, keep asking those big questions, keep digging into how things work, and keep trying to understand the systems around you, how they're built, and, yeah, more importantly, how maybe they could be built better. We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.